Davy.
Hello, hello. Hiya.
Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
To speak to us. So I thought we'd start off. I think we spoke to you back in 18.
Right.
You just recorded 3 Miles from Avalon.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to catch up. I guess 19 was a busy year for you.
Yeah.
You were on the road a lot.
Yeah.
Any particular highlights from your time?
I mean, it's a really unfortunate thing in that when you're on the road so much, it all kind of blends into one. And I mean that in the most wonderful of ways. It was a great year, but yeah, man, I think one of the big highlights was touring with Rory Gallagher's bandmates, with Jerry McAvoy, who was Rory's bass player, and Ted McKenna, who we sadly lost. But touring with those guys, Brendan O'Neill was fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been busy. Yeah.
I was gonna say one of the highlights. I'll say, and we haven't seen you this year. Actually, last year in 19, we normally catch your band. We saw you with Band of Friends maybe twice, but I think when we saw you at Space, and this is joking aside, I could not catch my breath after the first 4 songs of the Band of Friends set.
Oh, man.
Like, you guys came out and you like tore into it. Like, no speaking between those songs. It was just bang, bang, bang. And me and Kirsten both said the same. I was like, man, that was one of the best openings I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
But did you go out there? Do you go out there with a band of friends and you're like, right, we're just gonna give it to them from the get go?
I think that was just such a massive part of what Rory's music was about.
Yeah.
It just unbridled kind of energy, and Jerry is, without giving away too much of his age, he's twice my age, you know. And just trying to keep up with him is incredible. I feel like the oldest one on stage. So really, that was a hell of a learning curve. But yeah, you know, I think Rory, one of the things that attracted me to his music and really grabbed me was just how relentless it was. And I think if you are stopping short on delivering that side of it, then you're doing the music a disservice.
Yeah, and I think I saw, like, when we saw you with those guys, Jerry, what had he done to his hand? And he was still playing.
No comment. Yeah, look, he'd injured his thumb, and he soldiered on. Bless him.
He did, because he had like a big contraption on his hand that he was still playing.
Oh man, yeah. He's from the old school where nothing stops you, right? Yeah. And there's something to be learned from that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you were in the studio early in 2019. Yeah. So you were down at was it Shirk Studios?
Studios.
I guess you've got some stuff ready. What's going on?
Well, yes and no. Yeah. You know, that turned out to be a really great exercise and a really great time in the studio. Shirk Studios is a wonderful, wonderful place.
Yeah.
But it turned out really more of a demo making and a kind of putting your feet back in the water kind of session, a directional kind of thing. I really enjoyed it. So while I don't think any of those songs are really going to make a finished product, we are going to be recording again in March.
Okay.
For a proper full album, final recordings. Yeah.
And what's the plan? I mean, when I spoke to you back in 18, you'd gone a different route for 3 Miles from Avalon from The Outsider. And I remember we talked about that. You were like, The Outsider took a long time. It was a long process. And you went into the studio for 3 Miles from Avalon, and it was like a live to tape. And you could feel it in the album. Are you going to take a similar
I think definitely elements of it. I mean, just having, at the very, very least, the main kind of basic tracks, your guitar, your bass, your drums, all being played together, I think is a super important thing. And I want to take that element certainly out of 3 Miles from Avalon. But I think also some of the songs I'm writing now probably warrant a little bit more than what happened with 3 Miles from Avalon. Just something a little fresher maybe. Yeah. But I'm really proud of that album of 3 Miles. That was a really important one for me to do.
So 3 Miles from Avalon, I think when we spoke about that, and I reviewed it back then as well, and I thought your songwriting was changing. It was a lot more storytelling of based, and I really enjoyed it. So listening to songs like Oxford, Mississippi, where it's really got like a narrative arc and everything as well. That was really interesting to me. I mean, has that continued to develop?
I hope so, yeah. And that's kind of something I definitely want to aspire to. I think it's easy for us guitar players who consider themselves maybe guitar players first and foremost to hide behind that a little bit. So it can be daunting to step aside from that sometimes. But I've always been a kind of a fan of songwriters, and I've always tried my very best with that side of things. So hopefully, keep on that track. That's
we kind of, I think we spoke back then about your process, and I was asking you, do you take yourself away somewhere quiet to write? And you were like, maybe I'll get a chance to do that at some point in the future.
Yeah, it would be
Obviously,
lovely.
You've got a young daughter now. I mean, I'm guessing that time's at a premium, right?
Yeah. No, that plan fell through, didn't it? I think really with the songwriting thing, it's any way you can, anyhow you can, anywhere you can. You try, don't you? I don't think I certainly don't really have an absolute steadfast routine with it, but you have to discipline yourself to some extent, or you never finish an idea. And I think that's a part of it too. Is you get an idea for even a riff or a lyric or a top line melody or something, and I think if you just have to follow it through, and the song might be total rubbish at the end of it, but you've followed that idea through and you've completed that. And now you can move on to another one. And I think that for me has maybe changed a little bit than how I used to.
And voice memos. Every songwriter I speak to now is like their voice memos memory on their iPhone is.
I have this app called Hum. And if I look on it now, what am I? Some of the ones that I really like, I name something stupid. Up tempo is one of them here. But I'm up to hum number 667 on my phone. It's just absolutely
impressive.
Well, I don't know. You'd have to hear them to know whether it's impressive or not.
All new ideas.
There's something at 4:00 in the morning that
I have you seen what's that other one that I found? Music Memos. Have you tried that one where it puts the drums and the bass on, but it always gets it totally wrong?
Mental, yeah.
So I guess as well, I mean, and when we were talking before this, and just naturally in life, we're living in times at the moment where there's probably some pretty good material to be drawn upon for writing songs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think whatever your belief might be in where we're at in the world, you can't deny it's uneventful.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to definitely draw on. And I think the older you get, and certainly for me, in my case, in having a daughter, you start, or my mindset anyway has changed in that, what kind of world am I leaving her? And I think that certainly has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, people's lives generally, you'll have had ups and downs. Your daughter, obviously the horrible thing that happened with Ted and things like that, but that stuff must then bleed into what you're writing.
Absolutely, as a human being. And I think whether you're any kind of creative, and even if you don't consider yourself particularly creative, all of these things shape your life. They shape the person that you become, and somehow that comes out. So naturally. And
I think when I went back and took a look at the last time we chatted as well, and I think at that time you mentioned, there might be you were thinking of an album maybe like a straight ahead, real blues album, but then also maybe something more singer-songwriter focused. And is that still in the pipeline? Is that something?
I struggle from identity crisis. I really do, because maybe what I've carved a living out of is going out on stage and playing a lot of guitar and loudly and doing that. But really, I grew up. As much as I listened to Rory Gallagher and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, I grew up listening to Joni Mitchell and Jim Croce and James Taylor, and that has been a big part of me. And and especially with the first two albums with Roll Away and Coming Up for Air, there were definite elements of that I sometimes feel like people skirt over or forget happened. For us, a big song on the first album was called Come Home. It was like a big kind of bluesy kind of thing. But there was a song called Too Good For Me on there, which was a singer-songwriter ballad, and Roll Away that we titled the album was
Yeah.
Which is nowhere near
Very,
the blues.
yeah,
right?
no, it's not at all.
So, and then the same with coming up for air. You know, we had a song like "Tear Down the Walls," which was like a. You know, this kind of churning bluesy kind of thing. I had a song called Amber's Song, which was.
Yeah, and you used that, right, to woo your wife.
I did. And this is the reason why I became a musician. but yeah, I mean, I've always tried to have that side of my writing involved in a project or in an album.
Yeah.
But I never know really how it fits, where it fits, and I've sometimes had to rely on another set of ears to say, I really like that song, but maybe tuck it away, or I don't think it makes sense on this bit, or let's just throw it on there and see what happens. And so I do struggle. Sometimes I really want to just put a really loud electric guitar and stuff and go mental. And sometimes I really want to sing something perhaps more personal and perhaps a little bit more subtle. Yeah. It's very hard for me to figure it out.
And because of how you came up, actually, it's interesting, and I was going to talk to you about the guitar side of things. Obviously, is what a lot of people know you for.
Sure.
And
I mean, not a lot of people, but some people.
I can't say quite a few. But you put an article of that Pete Thorne had written the other day, which I was really interested, and I kind of agreed. That. Where and just for if you haven't read it, it was basically Pete Thorne talking about how there's a generation of people at the minute playing guitar in their bedrooms, but really being focused entirely on the technical side of it and how fast you can play and what tricks you can do. And maybe some people are losing sort of a sense of why you play the guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I liked about that article that Pete wrote was how well balanced it was, because it wasn't knocking that approach.
No, not at all.
Because I feel like there's room for everyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't knocking that approach. It was, this is a trend. And it was an observation. I thought it was just so beautifully written as to not be, finger pointing.
Yeah.
But totally accurate in my eyes. I totally agreed with him.
It is, and I think it as well. And we were talking about music and how it's changing. There's a tendency now for, live music. People should, if they're going to learn an instrument, I think it should be with a goal in mind of probably playing live in front of other people, or at least playing with other people. Yeah. But I think that seems to have been lost a little bit recently as well. And
I do, but I also see a resurgence of a lot of bands out there going out there and playing live and touring, because it's one of the only ways to carve a living.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is helping breed more good musicians.
Yeah.
But I think it's the exhibitionism versus the substance.
Yeah.
Is a definite thing.
I think, and I think there's an art to that a few people can do, and you can do it. You've definitely got that sort of talent of, you can play something that's incredibly impressive on the guitar in terms of a solo in a song or something, but you'll build that solo to a point where when you are playing that impressive piece, it fits with the song. It's not there to show off how great you are on a guitar, and I think that is a real art to have.
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. I feel like if I look at my influences and my guitar playing kind of heroes, maybe Rory Gallagher aside. Rory always played, at 110%, and he was always tasteful, and that's important to note. But it was, I think, more about his intent than anything. But if I'm leaving Rory out of it, and someone like Mark Knopfler, who is the reason I started playing guitar, you can sing every single one of his Telegraph Road, that beautiful.
Yeah.
Just absolutely stunning, and it sticks in your head. It's so melodic. Dave Gilmour.
Yeah, Dave Gilmour is
bloody hell. I mean, these guitar players, for me, are something to really worship, in that they had. You couldn't separate them from their music. Their guitar playing from their music.
No, we saw Mark Knopfler at Chicago Theatre last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I said when we saw him, and it's something that I've thought for a while now, that maybe when I started learning guitar, you do get caught into that thing of like, can I play this? This is really fast. This is really hard. Can I learn this? And then the older I've got, and I'm much older now, like it seems to me that it's more about exactly what Knopfler does, which is we went to that show, and within him, I could have been blindfolded and put in that room, not knowing who I was going to see. And within 2 notes of him playing, you would know it's Mark Knopfler.
Absolutely.
And it was astounding to watch him do that live.
Yeah.
And then also with the band that he's put together that he tours with, which is just second to none. But I think that's it, really. I think, playing to elevate the song or to suit the song is something that really the best players in the world have done. Mike Campbell is another one of my favourite for the Heartbreakers. I just think he's, and in modern day, and when we've reviewed Jason Isbell in the 400 unit shows, I kind of liken Sadler Vaden to. I think they're becoming like a bit of a Heartbreakers kind of band.
Absolutely.
But he plays like that. He plays to fit the song rather than to show off what he can do.
Yeah, and I think I would like to keep that in mind. When I'm doing the next, I would like to keep that mindset, in my head. It's easy to get carried away, and I think it's important to practice some restraint, but at the same time, carry off some energy. Yeah. And that's a really, really hard line to balance. Anyway,
And I think you'll always have, at the show, and like as you say, there's room for everything.
Yeah.
You'll have the people who are there to listen to the songs. You'll also have, the guys who turn up at like the Satriani and the Vice shows with their arms crossed, just watching every note that you're playing in the front row, and keeping both sets happy is probably important. But I think as well, you're in a position to bring a bit to each in terms of introducing them to a bit of the other side.
Well, I think you've got to be fairly brutal about it. And while you want to make people happy, and that's part of the reason of doing this job, is to try and do a little bit of escapism for folks and for yourself. The important thing is to make yourself happy, and to look at what you're playing and how you're playing it, and go, is this something I truly, truly believe in? Is this something that I truly connect to? Because if you don't, you cannot expect anyone else to, right? So you constantly have to have that inward conversation, I think, of is this what I want to be doing? Yeah.
And I think it for live music, and we say a lot, reviewing shows for the website, and it goes, if you see a band up there who aren't 100% into what they're doing, if they either they don't really believe in what they've written, or they're just on the road to make some money and they're not present, or don't believe in what they're singing or playing, the audience can tell it in a second. They can tell it in a second. I mean, it's impossible to hide it.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So when you do a new album this year, so 3 Miles from, and I know you're a huge vinyl collector. 3 Miles from Avalon you put out on vinyl.
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm interested in sort of the state of the music industry at the minute, and what's been interesting to me is with the resurgence in vinyl, that probably becoming again a little bit more of an income stream for musicians.
Absolutely, yeah.
Live shows and merch, or just selling online. Yeah. Will you be putting your album?
It'll definitely come out on vinyl, and we actually gain the rights back to the old catalogue as well. So hopefully at some stage, we'll be putting out all of it on vinyl. That's a dream of mine for sure. I agree. Yeah, I mean, selling vinyl is a strange thing. It's very expensive to make because there just aren't the amount of pressing plants that there used to be. Way before I started in the music industry, but it is interesting to see it come up again. It's a pain in the ass to sell on the road because you've got to look after it.
Yeah, you do.
So you can't take a whole load of it. You've got to be careful how you transport it. If you leave it in the van and it's hot, well, you buggered all your stock, haven't you? So, you've got to be careful with it. So, there is that side of it, a practical side of it. But I love the fact that there's a resurgence of it. I've been a vinyl collector for a long time now. And I have a serious problem with it, but it's wonderful to see, and I truly believe it's the return of wanting something tactile.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's just a marvelous thing to embrace.
I do as well. And I think, since I've been collecting as well, what it does for me is it makes putting an album on is a bit of an event.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not just let's put a playlist on from whatever streaming service and where I've handpicked this song from this guy. Let's put this one on and let's listen to it from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And some things are going to jump out to you from there that you probably would never have heard otherwise.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the big thing for me with it. I think it's
I am probably like most people in that I am on my phone a lot. I'm on the computer a lot. Yeah. That's kind of a big part of my job and also modern life, right?
Yeah.
And it is an addiction for sure. But for 45 minutes out of a day, I can put a record on and immerse myself in something else. Yeah. Something that isn't maybe the same immediate gratification as scrolling through Instagram or I don't like that, move on. Yeah. You have to invest yourself in it, and I think that's really healthy.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for me more the attraction to collecting records than anything. Everyone talks about the sound quality of it, and I think there may be something to that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's taking time out of a modern addiction.
I think it is, and I'm always interested now. I mean, when you put an album together, do you do it because obviously back in the days of vinyl, bands and artists put a lot of thought into how they sequenced an album in terms of the songs, what they put where. Yeah. Do you still do that for your album? Yeah, you would still think about that.
Absolutely, and also because I guess is the demographic I guess that buys my albums first and foremost are still buying albums.
Yeah,
and so you have to think like that, but also just from my own kind of belief in that I've put so much work into it. I'm not just going to throw it together. Yeah. You've got to see it through.
And I think, and we were talking before we started recording about the music industry and things like that and the way things are going. And to be honest as well, I mean, for a musician, well, you make your living as a musician today. And I think, streaming services, whatever you think of them, and I'll be honest, I use the streaming services, and certainly when we're doing stuff for the website, if I need to quickly listen to music, then I'll do that. But I'll also, and I think one thing music fans can probably do with your favorite artist is, you're going to listen to their stuff on Spotify, but go and see them live for one thing. And when you do go and see them live, if you really like that music, buy the album as well, because it helps. But I mean, I'm interested on your thoughts, I guess, in terms of the music industry currently and how things are.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to make a balanced, because I wasn't around in the so-called good old days, right? I started my recording career 2006, 2007. We sold about 60,000 records, which right now would put us in the Billboard Hot 100. Right, when it was a flop back then. Yeah. Right, that was a flop back then. So that's an indication. So I wasn't around in the good old days, if you like, if they were even as good as we think they were. So I can't speak on that level. What I can say is the streaming thing for me. You can't deny how unbelievably convenient it is, and you can't deny that some people might discover your music by being placed on it, but when you weigh up, if I did a Facebook poll, right, of the few thousand folks that are on my Facebook page about how many people found me through Spotify, I could tell you right now it would not add up to how much one record would have cost. So the balance between exposure, that wonderful word that all creatives love, versus monetary, compensation, is way off. It is way off. That is, I think, as much as I can make a balanced thing is that it's way off, and it feels like piracy.
Yeah.
But you, at the same breath, this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
And am I gonna be the one to take a stand and fight it and win? Yeah. I'm a little guy. Yeah. I'm not gonna win. Yeah. So what do I have to do? You can't beat him, you join him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the position we're in. You can say you're unhappy with it, but you can't stop people from doing it at this point.
And I think people who listen to music and who really appreciate music have a part to play in it as well. And,
yes.
I followed last year a little bit, the piece around the mechanical royalties and those amounts being increased over the next 4 years for songwriters and owners of songs. And I found it really, and again, I recognize the reason for them. So let's just say distasteful that Spotify and Google and a couple of the others challenged that because in my mind, I think they were talking about something like 15%. How can that be the amount the creator of the content gets? I mean, that to me is it's. I understand that there are a lot of overheads and things like that, but without the creators, there is no business for those streaming services.
Sure, and we're looking at the average payout for a Spotify thing as being 0.0004
something ridiculous.
Is that it's around there of a cent per stream average. And it doesn't work like that. It's not like everyone gets the same per stream. It's a tiered system. Yeah. So it does seem unfair. But I know people listening who might use Spotify go, well, I pay for premium. Yeah. It doesn't make a difference. No. What you might do is discover some other music, and that I can see that the absolute benefit to. But I've been struggling recently with this thing called a Kemper. Right? And it's a guitar nerd's piece of gear. Yeah. And I've been struggling because I think it is the guitar player's equivalent of streaming. Yeah. And I bought one because I thought this is going to be super useful. Man, I could have my guitar tone anywhere in the world and I carry it in my, on my back. Yeah. This could be incredible. And I'm thinking there's all of these models of amplifiers. If people don't know what it might be, it's this piece of a digital gear that models amplifiers and copies them. So you've got this piece of gear that has Marshall, Mesa Boogie, all of these Fender amps. And I'm thinking all of this hard work from people who are building amplifiers could be copied, put in, and sold for profit. Yeah. Now, I work with an amplifier company out of Colorado who's basically one man and his wife in a basement. I could copy, using my Kemper, I could copy one of his amps and go on my website and sell it. That poor guy, he's
his life's work. Yeah,
he's worked for years on these amplifiers, and for me, it's the same thing. I have an ethical problem with it, and that for me is the same problem. Yeah,
I think so, and I think it's, and we talk about this as well. Obviously, the world changes and it's adapting, but I think businesses have a part to play in making this more fair. It's not just about taking the biggest piece of the pie you can while you can. We saw that with the record companies back in the day.
Oh yeah, they're not without blame here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They would sign up artists to deals, give them huge advances, which they'd then have to pay back. Yeah. It was just the same. Everyone's in it for what they can get. We could do with some ethical businesses who are going to really look after artists these days.
We really could. We might be asking for a lot there. Yeah. In the kind of before Spotify and all that took it, I got charged back a pint of beer by an A&R man at a festival that I'd got him into. I once got charged back for a beer. So there is neither system was perfect, right? But this somehow just seems just wrong. It does seem wrong. There's got to be some kind of give here.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about record companies and the difference in the digital age. The fact that people can put out a record from their bedroom, record it to a reasonable standard now as well. And what does that mean for record companies, and will they be obsolete? But when I've seen record company execs sort of interviewed now, what it's all about is an artist building, maybe not, which is worrying, maybe not so much about the music, but whether that artist can build a presence in social media and things like that. And where do you see the role of record companies, I guess?
Well, I think they will always be around in some capacity. I don't think that the world will go totally independent.
Yeah.
Partly because there has to be some time where that the artist is able to create. It gets to a point. You take someone like Chance the Rapper, right? Who is kind of well known for being an independent guy. Yeah. But he's, in effect, built his following and then created his own record label. Yeah. It operates very much like a traditional record label would do. It's just not one of the major ones. Yeah. And you can do that from investment. Yeah. You could do that from building a following and being a good business person yourself. But I think also a lot of musicians, I would count myself in this, and my accountant would too. Yeah. I'm not a good business person. Yeah. I'm just not. I don't have the head for it. Yeah. So I need help.
Yeah.
And I think in some capacity a record label is still relevant with those things. But is the world shifting into building a brand online and making yourself a personality online? Absolutely it is. But if you like speaking to people and if you actually appreciate the people that are willing to support your career, I don't think that's a hardship.
No. Yeah, I agree. And I think we're coming up on over 30 minutes now. So
sorry, I'm waffling.
That was exactly what I wanted to talk about on that. So I've got a couple more questions for you to close out. One, because I'm a big guitar nut. So, and one thing I've always wanted to ask you is the PRS.
Yeah.
Paul Reed Smith's personal guitar that he gave. How did that happen?
Oh man, well I could have brought it. I'd known Paul a while at this point, which is a mad sentence for me, because instead of having a scantily clad lady picture in my locker at school, I had a picture of a custom 24 PRS. The sad bastard that I am. So that was, we just got on like a house on fire immediately and became very fast friends. And I invited him out, and as he'd done, he'd jammed with us lots of times before. He came and played with the band at a show in Virginia somewhere, and he brought this lovely guitar, and he was showing me backstage, and it was this, I don't know, it got woolly mammoth ivory and, gold on it, and all of this mad stuff. He'd figured out where Stradivarius had cut down the maple for his violins, and he'd put that on there. All of this mad, harebrained, crazy professor stuff that Paul is. Yeah. And we were playing, and he says, "Can I use a microphone?" I said, "Of course you may." And he said, "I think this guitar's his." And I'm thinking, hang on, what? What's going on here? And he gave me the guitar, and that was that. And I've had it now, 10 years. Yeah. And it's one of the most spectacular, inspiring instruments I've ever picked up. And I'm forever grateful to Paul. He's the kind of person that would give you the shirt off his back. He's a wonderful human. But yeah, it's a mad prototype that he was messing with. It's got no truss rod. It's got a strip of carbon graphite. It's got a solid Brazilian rosewood neck. The finish on it is bowling ball lacquer. Because he's thinking, bowling ball lacquer's got to be super hard, right? Because you're throwing it.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it on a guitar.
So it's literally one of a kind.
There's only one of them. It's mad. It's a lovely guitar, yeah. Nice.
I'd always wondered how it came about.
And I hadn't played it for a while. I'd been on another kick, with another guitar, a Telecaster, which I love.
Yeah.
And Paul had called me and he said, "I want your guitar back to do some work on it." And I said, "Well, okay." I sent it back to him and it came back, and there's not much to it, right? It's not a complicated guitar. And it was like 100 times even better. And I thought, "What did you do?" And he told me, and it went right over my head. And he's a genius.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
Yeah, some of those guys. And I watched Paul Reed Smith interviewed. I find that there's a very particular kind of guy who builds guitars. I've watched Bob Taylor talk, and the new guy he's got in as his head luthier, Andy Powers.
Right.
And you can tell these guys just like live for it. I mean, like the absolute minute detail of everything about a guitar.
I have watched Paul drop 2 machine screws on a table one at a time to see which one sounded better when it landed. I mean, this is the kind of thing. Another story with Paul. I was in a lift with him, and I had this guitar of mine in a gig bag on my back. Some more people came into the lift, and so I backed up.
Yeah.
And I hit the guitar against the back of the lift, and I kind of looked like, oh shit. And I looked at Paul, and he looked at me and he said, "Why are you looking like that? It used to be a tree." And he's just got this wonderful practical kind of.
Yeah.
He's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's my main guitar, really. Again.
Yeah.
It's just a tremendous instrument.
Yeah, it is a beautiful guitar. And then I guess I just wanted to close out to say plans for 2020. Some recording planned.
Yes, very much so. We are all ready and excited to be recording hopefully this March. Yeah. There's more news on that I'm not sure I'm allowed to say yet, but would like to. Yeah. So we'll be doing that. We're going to be heading out on the road again all January, February, March. I'm going to be doing some more Band of Friends stuff in Europe, and then another Band of Friends tour in September.
In the US?
Yes. Yeah. In the US. So it's going to be another really, really busy year, and I'm looking forward to it. And there's this idea in your head of it's a new decade and it's a new year, and there's all of these things you want to get accomplished, and I kind of feel pretty fired up about all of that.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for coming in.
Oh, absolute
Hopefully
pleasure.
We'll see you on the road this year.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Davy.
All right.
Up from wreckage, dragged to the side of the road. There's a man standing low, lit by the moonlight, blown by the wind, nothing there but the road in front of him. Turn out the walls, stomp through the barricades. Oh, there's a fight in every corner, and a night to every day. Living out of circumstance, driven him by fate, some kind of misunderstanding led this soul astray. Went down on his knees and reached up to the sky, said, Lord, I follow your way, just show me mine. And turn out the walls, storm through the barricades. Oh, there's a fire say night, you can hear him plead with the devil, Lord, for his soul release. kinda different. I guess they call it growing up. If this is how it feels, I've had enough. I remember holding your hands, weathered and warm. And when I look down at my own, I see yours. If I ever meet my maker, I'm gonna ask for you to tell me how on earth you made it through. 'Cause these days I've been wondering where I've been going wrong. And I need you more than ever now that you're gone. It's hard to keep a living, doing what I do. I got the same restless mind that you had too. And some nights it runs away from me, makes mountains from stones. And from the top looking out, I'm all alone. And if I ever meet my maker, I'm gonna ask for you to tell me how on earth you made it through. 'Cause these days I've been wondering where I've been going wrong. And I need you more than ever now that you're gone. We found out before Christmas the two were gonna be three. Gonna raise her up like you tried with me. Loving and forgiving, humble yet strong. Maybe she'll miss me like I miss you when I'm gone. If I ever meet my maker, I'm gonna ask for you to tell me how on earth you made it through. 'Cause these days I've been wondering where I've been going wrong. I need you more than ever now that you're gone. If I ever meet my maker, I'm gonna ask for you to tell me how the hell you made it through. 'Cause these days I've been